Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Hab and this is a video that's a little different from the usual reviews that I tend to make. I'll be covering my favorite vehicles at tier 9 in this one. To get this started, I'll cover one vehicle from each type, so we're gonna go through a light, medium, heavy and tank destroyer. I won't really go through a replay per se, not much anyway, but I want to explain why I like the tanks I'm going to mention. Don't worry, this one will be short, not like the 50 minutes video that I made recently. I'm not a big light tanks guy, I never really was, so the actual decision wasn't very difficult. For me it has to be the bad chat 25 AP. People would have guessed the T92 and that wasn't too far off, but the thing is, there's just not many tier 9 lights. I find the Chinese one just not that great and I'm biased against the Soviet one. Anyway, why do I like the bad chat? Well, it's about that magazine and mobility, isn't it? The premium penetration is, well, a little unfortunate, and you can't really point the gun down, but the rest is surprisingly decent. Getting free shots out was always something to be a bit afraid of, and with proper finesse, the bad chat AP still does that quite well. It's just not something most people would pick, if I'm being honest. With mediums it's actually been a little bit difficult. I always liked the AMX-30 prototype, but in the current meta the penetration is simply unacceptable. The T54 is great, but I simply just don't play it nearly as often nowadays. So the fallback option was the Centurion 7. It's still great despite the minor equipment changes, if anything that actually benefits it. The turret armor is still pretty solid and decently reliable. It now moves up to 50 km per hour instead of 40, and the hash is still incredibly satisfying when you get it out and right on through. After all this time, I'd say the Centurion 7 is still incredibly underrated. It's probably still my favorite gun at this tier, something about 350 alpha and 440 hash just hits right. Anyway, I can't wait for this thing to get a spruce up with PBR. Tier 9 heavies are, in my opinion at least, very competitive. You have the Conqueror's outstanding gun, the E75 and 50 TP's overall experience of being big boppers, the K91's outstanding autoloader, and the KPZ-70's generally decent all-around capability. But I think there's one that's just ridiculous enough that it could probably be a tier 10, and you know which one I'm talking about, it's the Object 752. All of the heavies I mentioned above are easily worth trying, but the 752 is worth keeping. 430 alpha, 2 shots, outstanding penetration. I run calibrated shells on it for a reason. The biggest shocker is that it has 8 degrees of gun depression, and the armor is pretty ridiculous when used right. Lift the turret when someone's looking at you and you can become a way harder nut to crack. The reload isn't even that bad at 17 seconds, with the only thing really being noteworthy is the 4-second interclip. The gun packs a serious punch, you've got solid enough armor to work into a couple steel walls, and the mobility is still fine. If this isn't the magnum opus of tier 9 heavies, then I don't know what is. So finally we're looking at tank destroyers, where it was just way too easy for me. It's the T30, it just is. Does it play like a TD? Kind of. It has a big gun and it uses the genuinely pretty good T34 chassis. The gun is just... when it hits hard. Of course the accuracy is not that great, but since the last big rebalance, the T30's been doing rather well for itself. 1800 hit points instead of the old 1500 helps a ton, the turret armor is still trollish enough, and you have the fantastic 10 degrees of gun depression to help you out. The penetration is surprisingly not the best, and probably the only real disadvantage of the T30 outside the relatively poor hull armor. The rest is just standard fare for a tank destroyer. Does this destroy tanks? Oh yeah, it does. Does it do it reliably? You bet. Does it do much other work? Well, in a pinch when you're top tier, you can probably sub for a heavy easily enough. Well, that's my favorite tier 9 tanks. I understand this video took a long time to get out, I promised it basically around July, and the reason is simple and I want to be honest about this for a minute. I've been struggling pretty bad with my mental health. There's times when I wake up and feel so ineffectual I barely even drink or eat anything and I just feel miserable instead, so you can understand that impacting my actual workflow or video output. From what I can tell, these states are seasonal, but I've had them since my early teens. Whenever I actually push something out, it's mostly because I'm in a more active or rather manic state, so it works out on my end. You know, like the nearly hour-long tier list video. I'm saying this just so you know in case my videos take a while to push out. Anyway, with all that out of the way, I'm not quite sure what the next video is going to be, so stay tuned for a surprise or something. As always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe or whatever, and I'll catch you all next time. See ya.